Right now, your land could be taken, and you wouldn't be able to stop it. Not because you broke the law, not because you failed to pay something, but because somewhere, someone decided your property is needed for something bigger. And here's the part most people don't realize until it's too late. Your deed doesn't always protect you the way you think it does. Across rural America, this isn't hypothetical. Families are opening letters that change everything. Some notice survey stakes appearing at the edge of their fields. Others get offers that feel more like warnings. And by the time it becomes clear what's happening, they're already in a fight they never chose. This isn't a conspiracy. It's a legal process. It's called eminent domain. And it's quietly reshaping who controls the land in ways most people aren't paying attention to. Here's what no one is telling you. The United States is entering one of the largest infrastructure build-outs in decades. Energy corridors, transmission lines, pipelines, rail expansions, projects that don't just span miles, they span states. And all of them have one unavoidable requirement. They have to go through someone's land. To understand this, you have to see how the system actually works. Once a project is approved as being in the public interest, the conversation changes. It's no longer about whether your land will be used. It's about how much you'll be paid for losing it. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Because on paper it sounds reasonable. Compensation, due process, public benefit. But in reality, for the people living through it, it doesn't feel like a negotiation. It feels like a countdown. You're not deciding if you'll give up your land. You're reacting to how fast it's being taken from you. And this is the part nobody talks about. Even when landowners push back, even when they hire lawyers, even when they win small concessions, the larger project almost always moves forward. Now watch this. One pipeline company in the Midwest filed hundreds of lawsuits against landowners across multiple states. Hundreds. Families who had held their land for generations suddenly found themselves in court, not trying to sell, but trying to keep what was already theirs. And here's where it gets worse. The legal system doesn't always decide whether the project should happen. It often focuses on one question instead. What is your land worth after it's already been decided that it will be taken? But this isn't just about pipelines anymore. And this is where the story shifts. The next wave isn't oil, it's electricity. The explosion of artificial intelligence, massive data centers, and rising energy demand is driving a new network of high-voltage transmission lines across rural America. That means more routes, more easements, more land in the crosshairs. And in many cases, the process starts the same way. Offers, negotiations, pressure. And when that fails, escalation. And this is where it gets even more complicated, because the justification is often framed as public good. Reliable energy, economic growth, national infrastructure. But here's the tension nobody can easily resolve. What happens when the benefits are spread across millions of people, but the cost is concentrated on a few thousand landowners? What happens when your property becomes the price of progress for everyone else? Now consider this. In some cases, land has been condemned for projects tied to private industry, rail lines, energy transport, infrastructure that ultimately generates profit. And suddenly, the definition of public use starts to stretch. It becomes less about roads and schools and more about systems that blur the line between public need and private gain. And that's where the real conflict begins. And here's the twist most people miss. None of this is new. Eminent domain has always existed. It built highways, cities, entire economies. But what's changing now is the scale and the speed. The demand for land is increasing. The projects are getting bigger, and rural communities, often far from the centers of power, are being pulled into decisions made at a level they can't easily influence. So the question isn't whether this system exists. It always has. The real question is how it's being used now, and who has the power to decide what counts as public interest. Because once that decision is made, everything else starts moving in one direction. And that brings it back to you. Because it's easy to think this is someone else's fight. A farmer in another state, a community you've never heard of. But every major project begins with a map. Every map has a path, and every path runs through someone's land. So the real question is this. If that path ran through your property, how much control would you actually have? And more importantly, Would you even realize what was happening before the process had already begun? Let me know what you think, because this is one of those stories that feels distant, right up until the moment it isn't.